Hello and welcome to another brief demonstration of a prototype of a new enhancement in the Eclipse EMF CDO project for the Luna release. Today we'll be looking at remote administration of repositories. So here we are in the familiar CDO perspective. A view that is not open by default in this perspective is the administration view. So this shows a connection to our test server, which has currently one repository, and that is an administration repository. So the mechanism of administering, creating, and deleting repositories on a server requires a couple of things. It requires some way to authorize such fairly significant operations as a server administrator type of role, and a place to store the configurations of repositories that are added through this interface so that they can be discovered and started whenever the server starts up. So that is the purpose of the admin repository. It is a repository that is started by default on the server and is designated as the administrative repository. So there's a new XML configuration element, admin repository, that configures specifies a configuration manager for managing the addition and deletion and discovery of repositories, and a path in the repository of a resource that will store the catalog of repositories. So that is similar in nature to the way a security manager is configured, with a realm that stores the security information. This is a resource that stores our catalog of repositories. Other details of this repository are just as usual. So let's get going and let's create a repository. So repositories have a bunch of information that is configured in the XML that we would specify here. So we want to enable auditing, referential integrity, support for eCore models, security management. Do we want to enable the security manager for user authentication? And if we do we want to give users home folders to partition their work and give them their own private work areas? Let's give the repository a name. Currently support only for H2 database store type. And for the H2 database, then there are certain parameters that are required. One of them being a store path. So this is a path, as in the XML, it's a path relative to the working directory of the CDO server where the repository file or the database file should be created. So there we are, we're done. Then we are asked by the server to authenticate ourselves as an administrator of the server. So this is nothing other than the administrator account on that admin server. So that is in fact a requirement of providing this remote administration of repositories in the first place, is that the admin repository must have the security manager installed to enable this authorization step. So there we are, and we see a new repository has come online, and we can open a session on that and have a look at it. So for now, there is only the administrator account on that repository. So I shall log in with the usual well-known default password there and add a user. So let's create a new user. I'll give it an ID. And whatever. Okay, that's all good. So then we'll save that, and we see that the home folder commit handler kicked in, which we had configured for this repository in the wizard, and gives me access to my home folder. And in fact, we see that that home folder now exists. I'm not logged in as this user yet, so let's fix that. We'll close that up, and let's open another session. And this time let's log in as me. I don't have a password yet. So this is something that we saw recently, right? We can change the password to something slightly better. Yeah, that's good, whatever. But the important thing is that here I am now logged in. I don't have access to the security model, but I can create whatever sort of content I'd like to hear. Well, so there we are. That is creating a repository. So what's the opposite operation is deleting a repository. So we can delete a repository, so let's try that. Oops. That looks scary warning. Cannot be undone. Yeah, okay, yeah, sure. We'll do that. And then the server comes back and says, well, not this one. You might think there's a good reason for that. That is the administrative repository, but that's not actually the problem here. This and any other repositories that are configured in the XML configuration of the server that the server started with in the first place, those are not managed dynamically through this administration mechanism, so they can't be deleted, stopped remotely from this interface. They're managed entirely in the XML statically. So we can try to delete this one that we had created. So again, we need to authenticate. So I could just pick that from the list, of course. And when I do that, boom, the repository's gone. Now, at this stage, the repository is simply removed from the catalog. It is not actually deleted from the storage in whatever form is not actually deleted. That is something that can be left for administrators locally on that machine to clean up if they wish, or keep around, because not losing data is better than losing data. But the repository will no longer be discovered and started from its configuration in the administration catalog. So just to see how that catalog works and see that in fact we didn't lose any data, let's go and create a new repository that happens to look just like the one that we had before. All right, there it is, authenticate. And sure enough, there it is, repo 1, and it shows up in the catalog with its configuration data, which is stored in a blob of XML. And I can connect to it and see what's in there. As far as I know, my user account should still be there with the password that I had set for myself. Indeed, there I am connected. And there's my data. So the repository not actually deleted, but removed from the server and no longer accessible. So there you have it, adding and removing repositories from a CDO server remotely. Thank you.